right now there's like a lot of focus on how we can help them, but it's like they can help us with a lot of things too.
Yes.
Welcome to the Optism channel, where we journey with Carmen to raise autism awareness and move steps closer to inclusivity. Join us as we meet community members, share stories, and explore initiatives that make a real difference.
Balancing family dynamics, I think, for families that have neurodiverse and neurotypical children can be somewhat delicate sometimes because, oftentimes family members have to be very adaptable and very patient as well. So I'd like to hear from you from the perspective of a sibling who's neurotypical living with another sibling who has autism as to, what are some of the challenges you sometimes experience in terms of, dealing with your family members?
So I guess in general, just when we see relatives or we meet someone new and like whether it's as a family or if it's just me and they're like, oh, do you have any siblings? I'm like, yes, I have a twin brother actually. And they always like come in with this expectation, do you guys have twin telepathy? And like, are you guys like, can you read each other's minds? It's like wonderful, you have like a built-in playmate kind of. And like, so I got a lot of that, like even up till now kind of. And that kind of just built this expectation in my head that that's something we were supposed to have. I mean, even if you're like, if it's two neurotypical twins, I don't think you can have telepathy, but it's just, it was kind of this expectation that like we had to be super close and have this super amazing bond that even just normal siblings didn't have. And so for me, that kind of pushed me to try to include him in a lot of the things I liked because he couldn't always include me in the things that he wanted to do, or he didn't know how to communicate that with me. So growing up, I tried to include him in a lot of the things that I wanted to do. And sometimes that didn't always work because it wasn't what he wanted to do. But I think as we've kind of matured and like we've both evolved and just like grown up, we've been able to find like a middle spot and find certain activities where we can both bond. Maybe not in the typical sibling way, like we don't tell each other like a bunch of secrets and
what do you guys like doing together then?
Okay, so I think so this happened pretty recently, I guess, as I started to like study a little more because of high school and whatnot. He's been starting to come into my room a lot just to, I need to be sitting in my chair. So he comes into my room and he's like, if I'm not on my chair, he's like, Ava, sit in the chair. Or he's like, work. So like, I guess like small things is we kind of exchange and go into each other's rooms. He doesn't really like it when other people are in his room and he'll say, go please. Or he'll like drag them out, but I just kind of like to sit there and say no. So like he has to like hang out with me and like sometimes I'll talk to him a little bit. I mean, sometimes he doesn't want to talk to me, he's just looking at me like, when are you leaving? I mean, I feel like this is kind of like the typical teenager type of thing that you would expect, but also I guess we're old enough now where I can bring him out by myself, and I think he finds that really exciting because when we do that, my mom's like, I'm not going with you guys, or our helper's like, I'm not going with you guys. He just like smiles so much. I feel like it's just something typical siblings kind of do, and I'm able to like bring him on this experience and he gets to meet some of my friends and like I just think it's like really fun.
I think that's absolutely amazing. And what are some of the common struggles that you see with families who have, neurodiverse children?
One of the challenges or common challenges I see, something that they might face, is defining that sibling relationship or sibling bond. And what I mean by that is being the neurotypical sibling. Sometimes I don't always get to take on just like that sibling kind of relationship, but a parental-like role, whether it's like we're outside by ourselves and I need to make sure he doesn't want to run away from me, or that everything's okay, that people are treating him nicely. I feel like it's kind of finding a balance between that parental role, but also just being like siblings and having fun. That's something that I've kind of noticed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I speak to siblings who are neurotypical and they do have another sibling who has ASD, they often tell me that their journey and experience can be very lonely. Like, oh, perhaps, the entire family would actually devote a lot of time on, taking care of the child on the spectrum, and they often feel neglected. Do you ever feel that way? And how do you cope with such feelings?
I actually haven't felt neglected by my parents. I think they did a really good job when we were younger. He would have OT or like speech therapy. He'd have a bunch of activities, whether it's like making flour in order to like stimulate his motor skills or whatnot. I was always included in those activities. Even if I didn't necessarily need it as much as he did, I always kind of tagged along. Like for his speech therapy sessions, I'd go there and there'd be some toys and I'd see what he's doing. I don't really feel neglected, but the part where it does feel a little bit lonely sometimes is usually on the weekends, actually. I remember growing up in the weekends and in the morning when my parents are still asleep and I'm awake, even though we're both there together in one room and we can like hang out and whatnot. I feel like he's kind of in his own world. Sometimes I can't really talk to him that much, so I guess that's where the lonely part kind of kicks in.
But actually, you gave us a great tip just now. I think as parents, when we do have kids to juggle in the family, I think it's also great advice that we could bring along the neurotypical child, bring them to therapy sessions, so then you can actually have him or her partake in some of the therapy activities. I think that's an absolutely great idea. In terms of hopes and aspiration for your club, I mean, what's in it for the future? I mean, you're graduating very soon, right? You're in grade 12. So what's going to happen?
Yeah, so I definitely get a lot of questions about what's going to happen because I've been running this for so long. It's like, what's going to happen if Ava's not there? Yeah, so we've kind of structured neurodiversity into this NGO for a reason, because for the past 2 years I've kind of been thinking about how I want to carry this on. And so we have the chapters, and like right above that we have Neurodiversity HK that kind of overlooks all of the chapters, and I'm still going to be taking on that role of looking after all of the chapters and kind of checking in on what they're doing. But in terms of the specific leaders, I think especially the CDNIS leaders, I'm gonna have to be passing the baton to them. And yeah, but a lot of outsiders, or if they're not in the club, what they don't know is I'm very particular about the leaders and their integrity for neurodiversity, because I really want to make sure that all the leaders or everyone who's involved in Neurodiversity HK, they're passionate about advocating for the neurodiverse community. And I just think it's so important to emphasize or make sure that they're not just doing it for like a CAS activity. CAS is like creativity, action, service, or just like for their resume. Yeah. Because I feel like there's so much more to it than that. Yeah. So I guess it's just making sure that we keep the integrity of all the people involved. Yeah, that's one of the big things, I guess, in terms of structure of the organization. But besides that, another thing that we've been talking about is kind of just creating more opportunities for neurodivergent youth for the transition from high school or middle school and transitioning into university or whatever plans after high school. And so we were thinking of like having these CV building type of programs, which I think would be like really fun, or just more career exposure opportunities. Because right now we have like our barista program with the Nesbitt
which is
Center.
amazing. Vince has been, he went one time and he loved it. It's absolutely amazing.
But yeah, so programs like that, but also outside of the F&B industry, and kind of see what all like our neurodivergent participants, things that they're interested in, and see if we can make that a reality.
Awesome.
Yeah.
For young minds who really want to join the cause in advocating for neurodiversity and inclusivity, what should they be doing?
Gaining that understanding and kind of developing that compassion towards the neurodiverse community, whether it's like you go to Cafe 8, for example, and you get a chance to interact with the neurodiverse staff there, or if it's like by other means. I feel like just building that compassion is really important, because with compassion and like the more people who have compassion towards neurodiverse individuals in the community, we start to understand the value that they bring in. And I think something Vince mentioned in the last episode was that it's not a disability, but it's just a different ability. And I think right now there's like a lot of focus on how we can help them, but it's also, it's like they can help us with a lot of things too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and I feel like it's just understanding that they have a lot of abilities. We just need to have the accommodations and flexibility to really bring that out.
No, I completely agree with you, because oftentimes I feel like in modern society, the parameters of what defines normality is so rigid that sometimes for kids like Vince, for instance, he struggles because he's not fitting in this kind of cookie cutter realm. So I think what you just said is absolutely remarkable. What kind of advice would you give to families or siblings who are actually struggling on their journey?
I think it's all about really taking those steps to really find ways where you guys can connect. And sometimes it's not the ways that you think you're gonna connect. And for me, I guess, I didn't think it was gonna be through Play-Doh and pancake flour, but I guess that was the case. And sometimes you just need to sit in silence with each other and gain that silent understanding. And with that, I feel like your relationship will grow. And,
Well, thank you so much, Ava, for taking the time to share your experiences with us from a sibling's perspective as well. And I think your dedication and your hard work in promoting inclusivity is truly remarkable, and we look forward to seeing the positive impact that you'll continue to make. Thank you so much for joining us at Optism today. If you'd like to find more information on ASD-related resources and information, feel free to click on www.optism.co. Thank you, Ava, for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I guess we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.